Welcome to the World Awaits.
Travel tales to inspire your wanderlust.
Welcome back to the World Awaits. This mini-series is brought to you by Avani Hotels and Resorts. With more than 40 properties across 5 continents, Avani offers city hotels, tropical resorts and retreats in nature. For more, visit avanihotels.com.
Hi, everyone. How are you, Kirsty?
I am great. I've just come up for air after editing my crime manuscript, and it's now being pitched to publishers by my agent, which is all very exciting. And I'm trying to be patient, which is not my forte at all, while it's being read by some publishers, hopefully.
It's awesome. And sorry, your description's about a travel writer as well. Am I watching? You wrote about me? I'm your inspiration. Did I murder somebody? How did I do it?
It is about a travel writer who's kidnapped on a remote island. Yeah, so I'm really hoping that I have everything crossed that it gets picked up, and you will be hearing about it from me nonstop when that happens. Yes. Anyway, what have you been up to, Belle?
If apparently I've been kidnapped on a remote island, if the book is really about me, I always wanted to be somebody's muse, Kirsty, so that I'm yours. I'm so excited for that. So I'm also very excited about the fact, not quite as much, but it's very exciting. I'm about to head off to check out some new accommodation in South Australia and the Mornington Peninsula. So I'm going to tell you about that next episode because they are gorgeous. But back to books, talking about books, we have a giveaway at the moment. We have a book giveaway from last week's author, who is the fabulous Tony Park, who is Australian, lives in literally lives on the edge of Kruger National Park. So jump back and have a listen to the previous episode. And he has a new eco-thriller coming out called Die by the Sword. He has a lot of conservation themes in his books. And that is out at the end of the month. So we're giving you a chance to win a copy for yourself. So jump onto our Instagram or our Facebook accounts. Make sure that you're following us. And then just like the post and tag a friend that you think might want to win a copy too.
Yeah, that's exciting. Exciting. And that's not the only giveaway we have either. Oh my gosh, it's all go. It's all go, Belle. We've got the most amazing tropical holiday to give away. So can you believe this? People, we're giving away a tropical holiday for our 100th episode. So this is going to be a stay at 4 days at a stunning 5-star Thailand property. And we'll be revealing all the details and information about that on our 100th episode, which is next week. So stay tuned for that. I'm so excited to reach our 100th episode. But first up, we are chatting about the world's most disappointing beach. And Australia ranks in the top 10. Oh my God, that's unbelievable, isn't it? Australia has amazing beaches. So cloudwoods.net has analysed thousands of TripAdvisor reviews to come up with the 200 most popular beaches worldwide that are causing the most frustration for travellers. And the research found many of the world's most famous beaches actually receive complaints from things like rubbish or having overwhelming crowds or queues and also too much noise.
Yes, so I know that's a bit of a downer, isn't it? But let's see if you agree with them. So maybe not surprisingly, Waikiki Beach in Hawaii tops the overall complaint list with a score of 100 out of 100. And that's actually the worst score you can get, right? That's not earning brownie points or anything. Primarily, all of those bad reviews were due to extreme overcrowding, while Venice Beach in California ranks second most complained about. And those complaints are actually focused on cleanliness. That sounds a bit gross, doesn't it? Dirty beach. No one loves a dirty beach.
No. And I've actually been to both of those beaches, and I have to say, I totally agree with Waikiki, who hasn't been to Waikiki, but I actually would never want to go back there because I found it so busy. I didn't find Venice Beach when I was there dirty, but hey, it's probably the time of year or something, or it was many years ago, because clearly majority rules. And one TripAdvisor reviewer wrote about Venice Beach, it's dirty and some parts of it even smell like urine.
Who doesn't like a pee-smelling beach? Don't hold back, people. That's all I can say on TripAdvisor. Nobody knows who you are. But that's all grist for the mill. Third on the list was Playa Manuel Antonio in Costa Rica, which is surprising because Costa Rica pitches itself as such a great eco destination. And that was followed by Clearwater Beach in the US. They both got the thumbs down for overcrowding. And then Bournemouth Beach in the UK, very famous, rounded out the top 5. And then, surprisingly, our own Bondi Beach in Sydney came in at number 9. And again, the main issue for both Bournemouth and Bondi was overcrowding. Do you find Bondi to be particularly crowded?
I guess it depends when you go. What time of day or year that you're there would depend on the overcrowding. So I don't know if this survey was based on summer. You would think so, given most people are at beaches in summer. Interestingly, the US actually dominates the dirtiest beaches list. And they had Venice Beach, as we mentioned before, which was actually already on the list for some. What was it on the list for before?
Having Mary Beach.
Along with Venice, how could we forget that? And I did just talk about it. La Jolla Cove and Padre Island are all in the top 5, and Mayho Beach in St. Martin takes the lead for noise complaints, and that's largely due to its location because it's directly under a busy airport flight path. Also, other places that didn't rank well for cleanliness included Freedom Beach in Thailand and Bentota Beach in Sri Lanka. And the complaints frequently mention improperly managed waste disposal systems, so I guess it's just a bit of rubbish, litter left by tourists, and in coastal areas with heavy development, urban runoff, which is affecting the water quality.
Yeah, that's not great. And for queues, island destinations with limited access options frequently appear. The Barbs in the British Virgin Islands, also Kelingking Beach in Indonesia. So they're saying too many queues. Kelingking Beach is the very famous T-Rex Beach in Nusa Penida. And that can only be reached by a very steep climb down a staircase down the cliffs. I actually have a huge issue with this one being a negative because there's currently a proposal and construction to put a glass lift down the side of the cliff so that you can just be zapped down there. It has actually had fierce opposition from some Balinese as well as some tourists who fear that it will destroy the cliff, so the cliff will actually fall down. Because it's not like when you get down to the beach, you can swim there anyway, because heaps of people have died from the treacherous undercurrents and the massive waves. So sometimes I think nature and that beach in particular should just be left alone.
Yeah, that's very odd, isn't it? It just doesn't really make a lot of sense, does it? And for noise complaints, the Caribbean and North American beaches dominated that category, with Mayho Beach and St. Martin, which we mentioned before, leading as the worst beach for noise. But given it's quite a tourist attraction because of its location under the airport flight path, that's why that's not really a surprise. And we will put a full link to all the most complained about beaches so you can have a good read of it yourself in the show notes.
This week, my guest is Karen Haranis, an Australian singing teacher and hiker who became the founder and owner of hiking company Rare Air Himalayan Travel. And we're talking about hiking in Bhutan, including one of the least visited, newly opening up regions of East Bhutan. Karen, welcome to the World of Waves. It's so great to have you here.
Oh, it's great to be here, Belinda.
This is really exciting because Bhutan, it's one of those places that just so many people know so little about it, but dream a lot about as well. And I think you might fall into that category because today we're going to be talking about your hiking company in Bhutan, but you're actually a music teacher. So tell me how a music teacher came to own a hiking company in Bhutan.
I've been a long time hiker and I organised a trek in Bhutan with my bushwalking club, and I met my guide Namgyal on that trip and went from there. He just asked if I might advertise his company and I said, sure. And then we realised that it would actually work better if I started my own company and had my own website. So that's how I fell into it.
And that was on your first visit to Bhutan?
My second, actually. Yeah. And by contrast, when I did a trek when I first went there in 2016, and I had a guide that really hated his job. So when I met Namgyal, seemed really fantastic.
And he gave you a different experience. You must have loved Bhutan from the first time you were there. Otherwise, you'd go back, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I really love the Himalayas, but yeah, Bhutan's just really special.
What makes it so special? What is it that draws you back?
I think mostly the people. I think the people are very sweet. They're pretty chilled out. The fact that it's just not very crowded there makes it really easy to travel around. I think in comparison with Nepal, where that's usually the first stop for everyone going to the Himalayas, and rightly, I think Nepal's a great place to go, but in comparison, doesn't have the pollution and the crowds or the traffic or the poor aviation record. Nepal's it's a bit dangerous for traveling in some ways.
How many times have you, so obviously you cut your teeth in Nepal and then on to Bhutan. How many times have you been to Bhutan? And
I've been 12 times.
yeah, that is a lot considering this country has historically not always been so easy to visit. You can't just roll up, especially in the past, you had to jump a lot of hoops, didn't you? Just
It's
get your
definitely
visa.
easier. It's definitely easier to go there now. And you have to go through an agent like me or my guides in Bhutan. You can't just, no, there are processes now. You can go by yourself, but it's really difficult to go by yourself. Much better off going on a guided trip.
There are some, I'm actually just going to ask you a little about the structure of it before we get into why you should go. But because when you go, there used to be a minimum spend per day when you were traveling, and that's one of the things that made it seem really difficult and expensive. What do you have to do now well, for a start, do you need a visa to go to Bhutan?
Yes, you do. We always include it in the price of our trips.
Yeah.
But I've got a slightly different structure these days. They charge a $100 US dollars per day sustainable development fee.
Mm.
On top of it, the cost of the trip is fairly reasonable, but they do have that tax on top of it. But it keeps the tourists away, and that's what makes it not so crowded. And as a hiker, it's really good because it means we get the trails to ourselves.
Absolutely. So roughly how much would you budget on, can you do a per day budget spend in Bhutan? Because that thing about Nepal always was with the backpacker thing. I survived for $1 a day. This is how I did it. Cut it.
No, it's more like $400 a day in Bhutan. But that's also paying for everything. So you get your guide, your driver, your accommodation, and all of your food.
Okay.
Deal.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So tell us about, so the first time that you went to Bhutan, what was the thing that everybody sees there is always the Tiger's Nest Monastery. It's like it is the hero shot for the country, and justifiably so, because it is absolutely added some, isn't it? Do you still,
That viewing point, that viewing point where you suddenly see it and you go, oh, how did they build it there? How did they put it there?
of course, the monk, the guru was flying on a tiger. That's how he got there, right? Yeah, okay. But unfortunately, we have to do the schlep to get there. So the first time you went to Bhutan, tell us where you went on that very first trip.
I did the Druk Path trek, which is a trek that goes from Paro to Thimphu. Yeah, so it was only a 5-day trek, and it's considered a pretty easy trek. And you do have views of the mountains, but they're pretty distant. So when I went back the year after, I did the Jomalari Loop trek, and that's definitely got specky scenery. And if you go further than Jomalari, if you do the Jomalari to Laya trek, then you get really amazing mountain scenery.
And what altitudes are we talking here?
Oh, up over 5,000 meters.
Okay. Sensational. How do you go with the altitudes?
I'm not too bad, actually. I still puff on the hills, but I've got pretty good underlying fitness. I think that's what you need. You need good fitness just to get up to the Tiger's Nest.
Yeah.
So being a hiker is actually an advantage in Bhutan. But I also do think it's the best way to see the country. I think getting into those really pristine forests is that's the part that I love the most, just being in those forests, especially in springtime, say, when all the rhododendrons are out. They're just incredible. You're just surrounded by pink or red. Really, yeah. And then you throw in that you're going to be walking to a temple maybe, or one of the zongs, those big fortresses. Yeah, it's just, I love it.
And that's what breaks up your hike during the day, is it? That you're always, is that how they're structured across? Because Bhutan is really a hiking country, isn't it? It's built for hiking and people hike. They also walk incredibly long distances just to go to school. You see the school kids will regularly walk kilometers.
Yeah, so they're building more and more roads all the time. So a lot of the small villages that were only accessed by foot before, you can now drive to. So that's why, yeah, some of those really, really great little villages in eastern Bhutan, you can drive to them now. And the roads are pretty good.
I'm going to say, I just about lost all of my back teeth when I drove through some of the roads in Bhutan. I thought, oh my goodness, this is astonishingly rough. It was just the poor little car just slipping between the pothole. But that was actually all, where I traveled was all West Bhutan, which is the area around Paro that is much better known. It's the area that has been so explored. And you've mentioned some of the treks that are there. Can I drag you across the other side? Because I think your passion seems to be more in East Bhutan, which is less developed but is still just opening up. And I think particularly for hikers, this is such an exciting part of the country. So tell us a little about East Bhutan.
Yeah, not only are the hiking trails good, but actually that's the real epicenter for handicrafts. So there's villages that specialize in maybe weaving. So Koma village is known as a weaving village, and all of the women weave, and they do beautiful silk. They work in silk, and it's just, the designs are really incredible. So Koma's got the silk. There's another village in Lungse that specializes in these cooking pots. Yeah, they're very interesting. And then there's another place in Choshi that has wooden bowls.
Fantastic. I do like the silk because it packs down so small, especially if you're hiking and you are counting every gram in your backpack. Yeah, then silk is a beautiful thing for that. So you can hike between these hand weaving villages. But then what about the hikes themselves? Can you give us a name of a couple of them that you've done that you think what's the one that's blown your mind? There you go. There's my question.
Oh, my favorite hike in eastern Bhutan is Ombane. So Ombane is a sacred site. It's where Guru Rinpoche, the same guy who flew to the tiger's nest, he's supposed to have left some footprints. And there's a mantra on the rock. So we were lucky enough, I've been there a couple of times, and we were lucky enough both times that the caretaker monk was there, and he showed us all the sacred sites. That was really and it's beautiful for us to get there. That's really interesting. So you start off in walking through the village, and then when you cross a suspension bridge and you're on the other side, you're in a biological corridor. So there are 2 wildlife sanctuaries in eastern Bhutan, Bumdaling, and this biological corridor links them. So the animals can move freely. And they've seen Bengal tigers there because they're losing habitat in India. So they're showing up in Bhutan now. There's leopards and deers. We can often hear the barking deers on that Ombane trail. That's my favorite one. There's also another one that goes from the Trumsingla, which is one of the high passes, and that goes down. It's mostly downhill, and it ends up in the village of Senghor, and that's a really lovely one too, because there's 9 different types of rhododendrons in that forest at the Trumsingla. Got to talk to the ranger about it actually, and that's red panda habitat, which I have never seen. My guides have seen red pandas, but they're very hard to see. But that's the hope one day that I'll see a red panda.
Oh, phenomenal. That's a reason to keep going back in itself, isn't it? So how long are these hikes then? The Ombane hike, how long is that one?
That'll take you about 6 hours to do.
Okay, so it's a day hike. Can you knit it into a longer multi-day hike?
Not the Ombane one, but the Trumsingla to Senghor one is part of the Trans-Bhutan Trail. I don't know if you've heard about that new trail.
Like, tell us all about it.
It opened up in 2022, and it's a trail. So they linked up a lot of the existing trails, walking trails. They've linked them up into one big trail. It's 403 kilometres long, and it starts in the west in Ha and goes all the way to Trashigang in the east.
If that one.
Oh, that'll take you about 7 weeks. Right, 5 weeks. 5 weeks, not really 7. Yeah, 5.
And how much? You've obviously done a lot of those hikes in different stages. Are you ever tempted to knit them all together and just go hiking in Bhutan for 5 weeks?
I'd have to pay that $100 a day for the whole thing. It's going to cost a lot of money to do that. I'm happy to just pick out my favourite bits.
And when you travel, how many days do you normally stay there?
I usually go for 2 weeks or so. I try and go somewhere different every time I go, and I try and find new trails every time I go. So we spend a lot of our time scouting out new trails and walking them and making maps, creating maps on the GPS, recording the kilometres and the altitude and that type of thing.
So are you actually mapping new routes, new walking routes?
No, not
your guides.
Yeah, if we ask around and get people to tell us where the trails are.
Because these aren't just trails that are built for hikers, are they? They're
Ancient trails.
And where would they have normally led? Where would those trails have been going?
My favourite thing is to talk to the park rangers because they tell you where all the trails are.
Okay.
I've heard there's a really great to a waterfall in Sukting, so that's on my bucket list.
Next time you go. Yeah, when is the next time you're going to be heading back then?
I'm going in January and then I'll be back in April as well.
Okay. So the best time then to travel, you were saying is in spring. So which months are they here?
So late March and April and early May are the best times. Depends on what you want. So you see the rhododendrons in spring. In autumn, which is more like mid-October, it can be a bit rainy up till mid-October, but from then on, you usually get clear skies. And that's after all that summer rain, all the valleys are really lush and green and everything looks like a postcard. So that's a really great time. But I also travel a lot in winter. I've probably done most of my trips in winter because the skies are really clear and you get fantastic views of the mountains.
Do you not also get an insane amount of snow?
No, it's a relatively dry time. They get most of their rain in summer. So it's quite dry. They do get snow, and there'll be some of the trails we know for sure will have snow on them. And sometimes when we travel in winter, there are some trails we can't do because they've got too much snow. But generally speaking, it's a really great time to go.
That's fascinating. So what sort of temperatures are you talking about here?
Again, that can be freezing all down to quite pleasant because it depends on which valley you're in. And when you're traveling around Bhutan, you're going over the mountains into another valley and then over the mountains into another valley. And the valleys are all at different altitudes. So they all have their own microclimates.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting.
The incredible thing about it too is that this is a country that is renowned for its hiking, yet there are parts of it that it's actually closed off and said there are certain peaks that you can't climb. That's right, isn't it? Are they still some are sacred peaks?
You can't. There's mountaineering doesn't exist in Bhutan, and you're not allowed to climb any of the mountains there, which is good. That keeps out that rabble. No, I think that's the thing about Nepal. If you go there in March or April when the mountaineers are all arriving, they elbow you out of the way to get up to base camp.
Have you ever been in a hiking traffic jam in Bhutan?
No, I haven't actually.
Do you ever cross other hikers when you're on the trails?
Mostly just at the Tiger's Nest. The Tiger's Nest can get really crowded, especially if it's an auspicious day for the locals, because then they all go as well. And as every single tourist tries to walk up to the Tiger's Nest. So that's the only really crowded trail you're going to see.
That's pretty astonishing given the location, the fact that we're talking Himalayas. So if you're not actually on the mountains, you're crossing ridges beneath them? Or then if you say that what sort of hiking is it that you're doing if you're not on a mountain?
Look, we mostly don't cross the passes. We usually start at the high pass. So that'll be our starting point, because I don't know if you remember, but whenever there's a high pass in Bhutan, there are prayer flags, and there's usually a chorten in the middle that you have to go around clockwise. Very important to go clockwise. So that's often the point where we start our hike. We'll get out at the high pass and get out of the car, and then our driver will meet us at the end of the walk.
Okay.
And it's actually quite new for Bhutan to have day hiking trips, because when I first started going, you usually had to do a trek, or you did what was called a cultural tour, which meant just driving around to the temples. But there's been more of a shift now towards doing day hikes and then staying in a hotel at night. And that's certainly, they're the most popular trips that we run. We run the treks. We've got all the gear for running the treks, but definitely those day hike trips are the most popular ones.
So does that mean you can, in like a week-long itinerary, you could take a couple of days and acclimatize, do a few hikes, spend a day in a village doing some of the cultural aspects of it as well, and then head off on another hike. So you're mixing those two, the hiking and the straight drive between temple kind of thing.
Yeah, we always mix up culture and hiking.
It's an intrinsic part, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the beauty of Bhutan. That's how it happens. Yeah.
It is the beauty of Bhutan, it's food. Because when I first went to Bhutan, I was told, you don't go to Bhutan for the food. And I have to say, I've never eaten so much chili and cheese, which is the national dish. So funny. Someone said to me recently, oh no, that's old school. Bhutan has totally transformed its cuisine now. Has it?
Yes and no. No, you still get plenty of the chili and cheese. If you want to have more traditional food, then you want to eat the chili and the cheese. So if you stay in a homestay, they want to give you traditional food, you're probably going to get stuff with chilies and with cheese in it. But they're also mindful that Westerners don't eat that much chili, so they won't put chili in every single dish, thankfully.
Oh, yay.
Yeah. It's a funny culture, though, because it obviously grew out of everything being cooked on a fire and then maybe a gas burner, and they didn't really have ovens, so you don't get baked sort of stuff. But we are starting to see baked things there now too. There's cake shops around, and the bread is usually terrible in Bhutan, but I've heard that there are some sourdough bakeries now in Thimphu, so I'm pretty excited to find them.
That sounds amazing.
One guy taught himself how to make sourdough bread by watching videos on YouTube.
Oh, I love it. I love it because they're in an incredible position. Bhutan is wedged between these two superpowers. It's got India pushing underneath. It's got the weight of China on the top of it. It's this tiny little stronghold of independence. And I think that when you're talking about the cultural aspect, that's why experiencing its culture is so exciting and unusual and important to Bhutan as well. So,
Absolutely. I agree.
So when you go from a cultural aspect, what are you going to see then? You're going to visit temples and zongs, the fortresses that you mentioned?
Yes. And you might go to monasteries and nunneries. And that's something that's really great to do, is to go to the nunnery or the monastery just when they're going in to do their prayers and their chanting. That's a really nice experience to just be able to sit in the room and listen to them.
I think they seem to have a lot of holidays and feast days as well in Bhutan.
Oh, yeah, festivals. Yeah, we haven't talked about festivals. Yeah, they have festivals all year round, really. And they're amazing. Oh, when I was last in Eastern Bhutan in January, and we got to go to, there's a school for traditional arts and crafts in Trashiyangste, and that's where they make all of the things that are used in the temples and at the festivals as well. So we actually got to see them making the wooden masks that they wear in the dances. And I was really surprised about the process that they go through to make those wooden masks. They actually really dry out the wood, so they end up being really lightweight.
Which is important because everybody's carrying everything on their back traditionally anyway, so no one's got something heavy around with them, are they? Just tell me a little about the hotels there, because you've mentioned homestays, and I think Bhutan had a real wave of interest when a whole pile of 5 stars started opening up, like Amman's and things, and had the budget to sink into world tourism. But I think that the homestays are interesting, and it doesn't have to be that high point, that high cost as well from some of those hotels.
I would actually argue that the standard of hotels in Bhutan is higher than the standard in Australia. So we use mostly 3-star properties, occasionally 4-star, but they're better than what a 3-star in Australia would be. And you get really great service from the staff. So we spend a lot of our time going into hotels, checking them out. There's always new ones cropping up, and we're always trying to find the best ones. And of course, once a hotel gets to be a bit discovered or gets into Lonely Planet or something like that, it gets to be too popular and it turns out to be really noisy, saying because too many people are there. So we spend a lot of time looking for nice hotels.
And the homestays as well. They are astonishing.
Yes, they are. And in some of those villages in eastern Bhutan, that's going to be your only option to stay in the homestay. And you're going to have a mattress on the floor with lots and lots of blankets. Some of the villages are quite cold. If they're at high altitude, they're going to be quite cold. So they give you piles of blankets. But you're going to get really nice home-cooked food. It's a really lovely experience, actually. Yeah, most of our clients, they pick out staying in the homestay as one of the highlights. So even though the bathrooms might be a bit primitive and you're probably going to share a bathroom as well, and you're sleeping on a mattress on the floor, they still love it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's part of that cultural connection. So I'm going to ask you the last question then, which, because I really want to keep talking about Bhutan, and it's that heart-stopping scenery that is outside that those homestays are set amongst. But I'm unfortunately going to have to ask you the last question, which is the one we ask all of our guests: what is your most bizarre travel experience?
Or my most bizarre travel experience was going to East Berlin in the 80s before the wall came down. It was just a really grim place and they were really paranoid. And I actually got physically thrown out of a supermarket. I'd been walking around so much that I had blisters. And I went in the supermarket looking for Band-Aids. And of course, the packaging in East Berlin didn't have pictures on it or anything like that. They weren't, no advertising. It was really plain. And I was just trying to look in the box to see if it was Band-Aids. And that's when the female manager said, she's got to go. And she grabbed me and pushed me out the door. I tried swearing at her in German. I wasn't very good at it. Yeah.
Did you get your blister? Did you get your Band-Aids in the end?
No, I didn't. I had to suffer.
Oh, okay. But now, if you go to Bhutan, I bet you're packing heaps of them, right?
Yeah. I don't get blisters these days when I go to Bhutan.
Oh,
good
on you. It was so fantastic to talk to you about this fabulous country, and I hope that we jump on your website and see some of that incredible scenery that you've been talking about and why East Bhutan is a place that people should be discovering. So thanks so much for your time, Karen.
Thank you. I really enjoyed speaking to you.
That was Karen Haranis, the owner of Rare Air Himalayan Travel, and you can discover more about her small group and tailor-made guided hiking tours in Bhutan on her website, rareairtravel.com.au.
Our tip this week is all about wellness. Wellness tourism is growing at a phenomenal rate, and according to Statista, the global wellness tourism industry is predicted to be worth around $1.35 trillion in 2028. That's because of the demand of travelers wanting to go on holiday for wellness-based experiences, and can be anything from bespoke treatments and healthy food to cardio-based classes or hikes.
Yeah, and Avani Hotels and Resorts takes wellness experiences so seriously, it's launched AvaniWell, where you can do everything from football camps to freediving. And if you didn't listen to last week's episode, head on back to hear from Hanley Prinsloo, who talks about her transition from living on a farm 10 hours from the nearest beach to being a freediving world champion. Amazing story. And she's a marine conservationist, and she's also holding retreats at Avani's property in the Maldives.
As well as freediving retreats, Avani is also holding an exclusive football camp led by football legend and former England striker Michael Owen, little heartthrob here, and it is completely free for guests staying at Avani plus Faras Maldives Resort from the 20th to the 23rd of October this year. As well as freediving retreats, Avani is also holding an exclusive football camp led by football legend and former England striker Michael Owen. Little heartthrob here, and it is completely free for guests staying at Avani plus Fares Maldives Resort from the 20th to the 23rd of October this year. So I've got to say, my husband would go nuts for this. I think that he would probably also have a lot of admirers from the ladies. And at Avani Rio Novo in Beno,
Husband, yeah, who, your husband or Michael Owen?
yeah, he'd be looking at Michael Owen's foot. We'd all be looking at Michael Owen's angelic face. I had a little bit of a crush on him when he was in the World Cup times, when he was leading the English team. But enough about footballers, because there's other ways too that you can do wellness as well. At Avani Rio Novo in Venice, you can take morning runs with local joggers. I love this idea. It is a brilliant way to start your day, and you get to see Venice without the crowd. So I'm totally crushing on that one.
Yeah, I love that idea too. And if you stay at Avani plus One Hin, you can join Reformer Pilates. I'm a big fan of Reformer. And as part of a wellness experience there, you also get a massage, sound healing bath, and physio. Oh, God, how amazing is that? Sounds like a dream. And I have to say, I have to just drop in there that one of the best wellness experiences I have ever had in my life was at Anantara Peacehaven, Tangal, Sri Lanka, which is a Minor Hotels property. And that starts... when you go along to their digital wellness package experience there, it starts with Anantara's got a 6th generation IV specialist who curates you a personalised program. You do possibly have to tell her a little bit about your bowel movements, but look, it is worth it. And the treatments that come out of that are really remarkable, and they're all tailored to you. Bit of meditation, art classes, temple visits. It's pretty special.
Oh my goodness, that sounds amazing. Even the bowel movement, love a bit of oversharing. And look, I checked out the Anantara in Sahara Tozer when I was in Tunisia recently. And if you are like me and you want a wellness experience that's really local, indigenous to the area, do not go past the hammam, which has a treatment using mud and salt from Choctaw Jorid, which is the largest salt lake in the region. So it purifies and oxygenates your skin. But I also think that either a horse or a camel ride in the desert at sunset has that same mental escape, because not all wellness is found in the spa. And I think that's the point of a lot of these examples that we've been using here. Yeah,
absolutely. And if you're enjoying this episode of The World Awaits, you'll be glad to know you can find a new sense of well-being with AvaniWell's new Reset and Recharge signature wellness retreat packages at the Avani plus One Hin Resort. Head to avanihotels.com to find out more. If you'd like to help support our production costs, you can buy us a coffee at coffee.com/theworldawaits. That's ko-fi.com/theworldawaits, so we can continue to bring you inspirational travel interviews with the world's best.
Next week is a huge milestone for us here at The World Awaits, and we are talking about our own bizarre travel experiences and have that very special giveaway. Thank you to Avani Hotels and Resorts. Please keep an eye out on our Instagram and Facebook accounts for more. Just search The World Awaits podcast and you'll find us.
And you want to jump onto that one because Alistair Leith, our sound producer and resident movie reporter, is joining us for our 100th episode. So you'll be hearing from the three of us. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please give us a rating and review. On Apple Podcasts, click on our profile, scroll down to the bottom to ratings and reviews. And if you're on Spotify, go to our main page and click the 3 dots underneath our photo, or simply drop us a line at hello@theworldawaits.au. We love nothing more than hearing from our listeners.
That's a wrap for The World Awaits this week. Click to subscribe anywhere you listen to your favourite pods.
Thanks for listening. See you next week.